You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to an international break edition of Achtung Millwall. Joining me for your pleasure, for your listening and aural pleasure, this non-Millwall weekend are the two of the pick of the Achtung Millwall panel. It's Mr. Harry Warren to start us off with. How are you doing, H?
Yeah, I'm good. I hope everyone's enjoying the 85th international break of the new season.
It does seem to come around very often, doesn't it? Especially this particular week. But there we are. But also joining me on the show is the newly announced Minister to to bring in common sense and combat wokery. It's Mr. Neil Fissler. How are you, Neil?
Not too bad. I have actually offered my services to Esther McVeigh, but as of yet, she hasn't taken me up. Very kind of that.
What services were you offering her, though? Is this wokery and common sense we're trying to bring in, mate?
Yeah, but I was going to offer her plenty of advice on what not to do,
Sure.
and things like that. A swift right hand would have done it, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Oh dear.
Maybe starting with teaching the Metropolitan Police the idea of double standards, which would be a good start.
Welcome to the political edition of Achtung Millwall. But no, it's the international break edition, dear listeners. So we're going to move swiftly on. It's been an exciting week at the Den after that 4-0 victory up there at Sheffield Wednesday last week. The Edwards revolution is in full swing, it seems. Harry, are you excited that Joe Edwards is on the South London Press, London News, not trying to damn me, wants to whip expectations up still further after that incredible first match in charge, it says. How are you seeing the Edwards revolution, mate? You enjoying Millwall suddenly?
It's one game. It's very one game. I've been hurt before. I've been hurt in the past.
Haven't we all? I've had 50 odd years of getting hurt. You know?
I just think that I think we would have had a new manager bounce whoever we went with. I think it was very, very stale by the end of Gary Rowett. Great start. Can't ask for more. Jake Cooper is back into overlapping runs into the other team's into the other team's half, which we haven't seen for maybe 18 months to 2 years, and it's all good. So
Pushing forward with Wes Harding.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that we haven't seen before, but we haven't seen it done for a long while. So, they're promising signs, the green shoots of spring, shall we say.
What we haven't seen before, Neil, I suppose, is the idea that we attack as a matter of policy. The idea that, Jake and Harding will get forward playing attacking balls rather than some of the more dull football we've seen for a long while, increasingly under the former coach Gary Rowett. I mean, I'm just looking at, there's a long article on with Richard Corley, an interview with Joe Edwards, and I do get a good sense from this guy, Neil. He's coming from nowhere slightly, obviously well known within the football world, but the stuff he's saying and the way that he presents himself and the use the word again, the common sense kind of approach that he seems to be employing is really refreshing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel quite enlivened with Millwall at the moment.
Let's be honest. Let's temper one or two things, because we've played a team who are the championship equivalent of the Dog and Duck, and we played them off the park. Yeah, we can't read too much into that result. They were absolutely awful. And if we hadn't have done what we did, we've done what was expected of us. Yeah. I'm tempted, you'll keep on reading all of these analogies that we've gone from like pan shop lemonade to champagne football. But okay, it was good. We played pretty well, and that could have been a game in previous incarnations where we might actually have taken our foot off the gas and ended up drawing it or even losing it. It would have been a remarkable feat to have actually lost to them, because they were absolutely shocking, weren't they? Really shocking.
It's nice to beat Sheffield Wednesday, though, because I fucking hate them. I've never forgiven them for that fucking ghost goal. I still sometimes wake up in the middle
Oh,
of
the
the night.
1-0 at the Den all those years ago.
Which basically relegated us with the Becco kit. I can't remember what year that was.
Yeah, well, that was the idiot referee that actually allowed the goal celebration, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and then,
I remember that.
Yeah, well, them to take the Probert, wasn't it? Lee Probert was the referee or somebody like that.
I hold no grudge against them for that. I mean, what I would say, and I think just to touch on what you've said there, Neil, because I did watch the whole game back. For you, dear listeners, I suffered and watched the whole game on Millwall TV. And what you got to say is, and I think Joe Edwards says it here, in fairness to him, in this interview with Rich Corley, he says the first 15 to 20 minutes were tough. I would say the first half an hour up until the goal, Wednesday weren't brilliant for sure, and I take that point that you've made. Neil. They created a few moments where a better team, a better set of strikers might have scored a goal. They had moments and opportunities, so the game, as every game, swings on small moments, and they didn't get their chances, didn't take their chances, and we did. But they weren't completely out of it initially. Once we got in front, and this is, I think, the big contrast with the Rowett regime, Harry, is that we pressed forward and we carried on pressing forwards. We put our foot on the neck, so to speak, whereas the inclination always under GR was take your foot, defend it. 2-0 up at half time, we would have seen a very, very different defensive display in the second half. Whereas, at least as an initial impression, Joe Edwards seems to be more committed to going forwards.
Inevitably conceding a cheap goal at some point, and then
we might have seen it through for 2-1. I don't know, but whereas under Edwards, he seems more committed to pressing his foot on the neck, so to speak, and we carried on attacking, we carried on going forwards as ever, as Neil said, against the poor side. But that change in approach, if that's how it's going to continue, and all of the interviews he's doing seems to imply that's going to be his policies, to go forwards more. That's got to be music to our ears.
Well, it's more Millwall, isn't it? It's Millwall we'd rather go out on our shield in every single way. That's just the club. We'd rather you have a go, and we are the club for the big occasion, or have been through our history. We live on moments. We accept that we're not gonna win the league. We're not going to win the Champions League, and we're not going to win the Premier League. So you live for the moments. To try and have a go all the time isn't a bad philosophy. Okay, we'll accept not having a go against a Man City if they come to the Den or someone like that. But there's most of the teams in the Championship, I'd say, are as good as us, or if not a little bit worse, basing it on last season. And we shouldn't really fear anyone other than the ones that I expect to, roll through the division. And I think it got to a point where with Rowett, you knew that we were just going to try and defend, and teams had worked out how to beat that defence, and therefore it was a failed policy by this season.
There was something I had under Adam Barrett, that we were playing a lot better football. And you actually noticed a difference when Adam Barrett took over. I'm not quite sure if it was just that Rowett ball wasn't there anymore, but you seem to enjoy games more. And then you go into last week, and we were just creating chance after chance after chance, really, weren't we? Yeah, but the strikers weren't having to create chances for themselves. They'd get the ball on the edge of the box and the ball in the box and things like that. It was very refreshing to see. What I don't want Joe Edwards to do, and I'm saying this as a journalist, really, because in journalism you always knock people up to actually
bring them back down again. Yeah.
For him to build himself up and to build our expectations up, because you know what it's like at Millwall, a couple of bad results, and it'll suddenly be Joe Edwards. Your football is shit. To Chelsea and take that Camp Myers with you. I
started off
I'll pay for
the previous show. One of the chaps, Jim, shout out to Jim Littler, sent me some recording at the end of the game, and there was the Joe Edwards song. And listeners might have heard it on the previous edition of Achtung. One Joey Edwards. There's only one Joey Edwards. So I hope that he is given time. I mean, I do think that he's clearly both experienced in a footballing sense, but inexperienced in a managerial sense. And I think maybe the media side of it, Neil, is an area that he might have to be thinking about, because I'm just looking at some of the quotes from this interview with Rich Corley. He's basically saying he wants people to get excited. I hope people do get excited about having a team that they enjoy watching. Well, I think that's great. I mean, I think it feels so refreshing. It's like when you break up with somebody and you've met somebody new. Suddenly you're alive again, aren't you? You're looking forward to all the things of life again. And so, but there is a danger that lies in that, because, as you say rightly, a couple of bad results and a couple of bad performances, and it can all turn. I really hope the Mill support is a bit more sophisticated than that, Harry. What do you think? Do you think we're sophisticated to see that this is going to be a project and we're going to have to take some bad games with some good games? I hope people are think deeply enough to get that point, but I wonder whether you'd agree with that. You paused. You hesitated. You're done. You're done for there.
I
don't even bother answering it, Harry.
Are we patient at Millwall? Are we patient? Get it forward, you fucking prick. Would be my idea. Would be the line back to that. No, look, that's probably a Millwall stereotype. I think we can be patient at times. I think we'll give you. I think we're not. This idea. I remember back under fucking Holloway, you said that
Holloway got a good year of patience, didn't he?
Holloway do that weird fucking come upstairs and watch me tell you how I'm better than this other manager that's about to turn up and tell you how you don't know what you're watching, even though what you are watching is fucking chaos, right? And I just want to make it very clear that a lot of people gave Holloway a lot of time, because I don't know why. I can't actually remember. I know you didn't, Neil. I remember you called him hollow words very early.
Well, you were a rare voice, Neil, in fairness, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I called him hollow words before it even started and predicted that it would be a disaster.
But there we are. I mean, the point being that he was given plenty of slack. I think Gary Rowett was given a lot of slack, Harry, as well.
A lot of time.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that, this stereotype of, but it's wrong. Yeah, but you'll get the odd disconcerting, dissenting voice, no matter what you do anyway, really. So, but I think he will be given a lot of time. Managers down there traditionally are. I think that what helped Rowett was we were out the ground for nearly a year, weren't we, during COVID?
Yeah, the COVID times.
In that run where they didn't win in 13 or whatever it was. And it was just...
Then they started to win again and we came back in. So he missed out on that large chunk of a winless run, having fans there, and you kind of get away with that then. But it is what it is. Yeah, but let's look forward to the Joe Edwards era. It's great to look forward to watching Millwall and to watching a game, and
a bit of anticipation. Yeah, I agree.
But I couldn't wait for that game last week just to see what the Joe Edwards era looked like, and I thought that it would take a bit of time before we hit the ground running. But he certainly hit the ground running. But then again, it was against the Dog and Duck, wasn't it? So
I'm looking forward to the Ipswich game because I feel like that'd be like a meeting of two sort of coaches
young
that
managers,
are supposed to be this new fucking breed of football coach.
Yeah, on Tuesday week. Is it Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so.
It's the
midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday?
We're playing Coventry next Saturday. I think it's the midweek game. I think it's a Wednesday night game up there at Portland.
Huge test because
that's a big test,
because they're up there and they look like staying up there. I know they've had a couple of results that haven't quite gone their way recently.
I fucking hope they don't. I fucking hate Ipswich fucking town.
Yeah, was there one team that you really nonplussed about, Harry? That
you've got a soft spot for, Harry? Anyway?
What, that are beige? That I don't care. Brentford. Oxford, maybe. Don't really care about them. So, like, you know what? Banality. I used to think, like, Fulham, QPR and Brentford, I used to look at them and go, I can see that they're in London. I know they are, but they're just nothing, right? They didn't offend me. And then QPR appointed Ainsworth, and I found I fucking hate Gareth Ainsworth. I've never fucking forgiven Gareth Ainsworth for doing Tony Craig twice in one season.
Achtung, Millwall.
I'm looking at a wonderful photo of it's with the interview with Joe Edwards. There's Joe Edwards. This must have been at Sheffield, listeners. Joe Edwards, Andy Myers, and Adam Barrett staring at like an iPad. And Adam's got like a wondrous look on his face, like these South Sea Islanders that have never seen the 20th century. And when an American,
like they're trying to give them fucking bananas, or like they're trying to give
there's
that kind of shit. Yeah.
Well, they call it the cargo cult, when an American bomber dropped some stuff out of over an island. They thought it was God talking to them or something, And Adam's looking at this iPad with wonder. So that's the new regime. Listeners, they're staring at iPads with statistics.
But they were actually looking at Pornhub.
You can tell it's international break, dear listeners, can't you? Anyway, I just really like the style of Joe Edwards. He's another interview here, Harry. The top teams proactively dominate the game. Anyone that uses the word proactive is fine by me, because that means they know what they're talking about.
Next Millwall will be following Bromley and fucking asking us to have a football manager fucking tactician.
He's saying about Jake Cooper and Wes Harding. People will have seen players like Coops and Wes and asked the question whether they're capable of this new style, the carrying the ball forwards, the Franz Beckenbauer approach. Neil, are they capable of it? That's not what Joe said. He says they are. It's about being collective. They staying connected with the man with the ball. If he gets beaten, then you've got support. This mentions George Saville's goal, great goal, and Brooke Norton Cuffy's goal was another good strike. So I think he's obviously got the squad he's got at the moment to work with its limitations, Harry, but I think he's going to place some higher expectations on some of these players. It's going to be interesting to see if they can indeed step up to it. Early signs at Sheffield, and always the caveat they're not very good, seems to be quite hopeful. I think some of these, we've seen Jake getting forwards in the past, and then he was discouraged to do so by the previous regime. So maybe there's more to the likes of, Wes Harding scoring goals suddenly, isn't he? So maybe we'll see some depths to players that we haven't seen previously. What do you think?
I do feel like the weight of Gary Rowett's curmudgeonly Northern Midland shit has left the building. It does seem.
I agree. I was having this conversation with Neil before you joined, actually offline. I feel like the players seem happier.
They do. I think it's easy to fake it for the fuck around training ground PR bullshit that comes out of football clubs these days. But in those moments after games and the little bits of the warm up and stuff, when they're smiling, they look like they're enjoying their football. That instantaneously come even under Barrett. They looked in that Tuesday night. Was it a Tuesday night against?
It must be like having a miserable bloke at work that's left, Neil. It must be like having face ache in a corner that everyone has to tolerate, and then maybe he's in charge as Ray was, and then he's gone. There seems to be a line. So I was watching the video, I think the one that you're meaning, Harry, where they're mucking about in the training ground canteen trying to put ping pong balls into egg cups and the mug, and with points, and they just seem a little bit lighter in their step. It can only be a good thing, I think, Neil.
I think it goes to show that that everything that people have said and that I've said, that the previous regime wasn't that popular in the dressing room. The players weren't particularly enamoured with the way that they were having, or with the way that they were being asked to play. I think the good thing is that we are on an international break, because I think that Joe Edwards probably only had 3 or 4 days to work with the players.
Couple of sessions, I think I read. Yeah.
Yeah, by all accounts, they were very long sessions. They were 2.5 hour sessions, as opposed to hour-long sessions, or whatever training session is. So I would have thought that he would have given them a couple of days off at least, and then it will be back in, except for those players that are away on international duty, and he'll really better get his point across and his ideas across in the next week. And he's already probably had 2, 3, 4 days of working with the players. So
Yeah.
it can only be a good thing. Actually, for once, looking at the Sheffield Wednesday game and looking at the appointments, I think it came at slap bang at the right time. They actually timed it pretty well, didn't they? That they got a game out of him, and now they've got a fortnight of Joe Edwards being able to get his philosophies across and the way that he wants the game played, and he can work on it.
Sell more tickets for the Coventry game off the back of a good result commercially.
No bad thing, Harry. No bad thing, mate, is it? I mean,
fucking joint up thinking at Millwall. What's next? Joint up
we've
thinking in the
mentioned,
government.
Last game was a sellout. We've mentioned a number of near sellouts we've had in the last few months, and I'm sure the levels of excitement building that this Coventry game is going to get close to that, because I think there's a real hunger for what I think we're reading about. I'm just looking at
and then we've got Sunderland after that, and they're already talking about selling their full allocation of tickets.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Sunderland's they've got 3,000 coming. But when you read stuff like
on us having a little bit of a run before Christmas.
Well, I think if we can get some momentum going, and with a full house and a team that gets forward, which is always the bit that didn't happen under the previous regime, anything's possible. You're going to have to accept that you're going to win some, lose some, because it's an open style. And we could have conceded against Sheffield, and we're going to maybe take a few goals in against decent sides. But when you read stuff, I'm just looking at the 4 takeaways. Alex Grace for London News here. It says here, this is his 4 takeaways, benching Sheffield. It looks like Edwards has taken the shackles off of a team and allowed them to get out there and play with freedom. Well, that's that's meat and drink to the Millwall support, Harry, and that will put bums on seats if that's what the sense arises that's the kind of Millwall you're going to get. More like the old days.
I think as well, you've got to remember that if you draw 2 games and you lose one, you're better off to lose 2 games and win one. And I think it's just points wise that makes more sense as well. And I think you're more likely to do that being on the front foot than you are trying to get those 2 points by being compact and being defensively rigid and lump it forward and get Murray Wallace to fucking just, I don't know, run around like an headless chicken at left back. I'm picking on Murray, but I don't mean it. But it's just been like that, and everyone's sort of had apathy towards it. And I think something needed to change. I did call it right back in that first show of the season that we done the preview, that if he didn't start well, the knives were going to be out for him because of the way our last season ended. And it felt like the hangover run from, I think, maybe even Rowett himself. I just feel like that we're almost in shock, and I feel like something had to give, and eventually it was Gary Rowett's time at Millwall. It needed a change. And are we a million miles away from being the side we were last season in terms of sort of where we could finish in the league? I don't think we are. I just think that we maybe needed a breath of fresh air to come in and give people confidence and whatever again. And I think that's what hopefully will happen now, as Nick's Cats decided to join the recording.
The cat just stepped on. I've got the my old Apple here, which is a bit slow, but it does a job. And the cat decided to step on it, so I'm hoping I've got no break in the recording now, and everything's carrying on as it should have done. Yes, it does seem to be working still, thankfully. Cat free. Yeah, I mean, just looking at some of these other pieces in.
Yeah, but your right boot generally sorts a cat out.
Welcome
to the 1970s, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't listen to the nasty man. Don't listen to. Talking about, there's a piece here of Brooke Norton Cuffy, the scorer of the great 4th goal. Obviously, the plaudits went to George Savile. I will mention again shortly because he's been made Northern Irish captain for 50th time. Did I read 50th cap?
Is it 50th cap?
Yeah, and he's captain for the night. So, and he's also George Savile. This is listeners. said he'd love to stay longer at the Den. It's a bit of a come and get me type of, even though he's here already, kind of message that he's sending here. His contract is up in a year's time, apparently, an option.
It's actually up in the summer, but we've got an option of a year.
Of a further year. So certainly George has set his stall out. He'd love to stay. So I think he's made a real impact since he's been returned to the squad, coming from the cold. For whatever reason that was. But the likes of Norton Cuffy, they mentioned Danny Mack and Joe Bryan whenever he can be fit again. All of them like to attack. I mean, there's people to come back into a side, and certainly on the forward side, Harry, it's looking hopeful, mate. It looks like we have a team that do want to and can play attractive football going forwards. The defence is the only bit that's the fly in the ointment, but hopefully we'll score more goals than we concede.
I think the defence becomes fly in the ointment because we had nothing in front of it to hold the ball, or no kind of idea of how to take any pressure off them. I think it becomes easy for other sides to pick that defence apart if they haven't got to worry about anything that you're going to do, and you can't shut down their left back or right back when they're running at poor old Murray Wallace and Danny McNamara or BNC. But we literally, I don't know. It just feels, it's nice to be able to watch Millwall again and not feel like you know what's going to happen before you watch the game. You've sort of got,
like, you know, you're going to go home miserable. I think that's where I'd got. And you know, as Neil knows, as you know, Harry, going regular to the Den, it's an effort to get over there. It can be a mare of a journey sometimes. I think a lot of people would say this. You want to at least feel like you've got some chance of an entertaining game, and win or lose, that somehow you've seen a spectacle of some sort, and that wasn't happening for a long while. It hasn't been happening, and now there's a sense that it can.
Yeah, no, definitely. What was our record? Something like
awful,
we've
awful.
won 6 of 20 odd, was it, or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely
woeful, absolutely woeful record. And you want to, but that's your bread and butter, your home games, aren't they? If you're 100%. Not playing all at home, you're absolutely fucked.
Millwall didn't get into the playoffs last season because their home form was fucking abysmal from January to May. That is the main reason why we never got in the playoffs. That is.
Yeah, but that we didn't sign a striker.
It's just dawned on me half an hour into the conversation, listeners. We need to have an advertising break, but I haven't even done my pundit questions for this show. So I'm going to use the pundit questions as a chance to ask 2 questions for you. Punditgames.co.uk. Christmas is a-coming, gentlemen, and this is a great football quiz game for the football head in your life. And each show we've been doing little teaser questions, give you a sense of the kind of questions that you get in the quiz. You get 5 questions right in a row, you score a goal and defeat your opponent over however many minutes you want to play it for. So I've got 2 questions for you, chaps. We're going to take a break after that and come back with the answers after the advertising break. But first one up, Neil and Harry. Answer after the break. This will be a Champions League question. This is a young Englishman who outshone Real Madrid stars at the Bernabeu in 2017 and announced his name on the European stage. He went on to start in the 2019 final, Champions League final, where his Tottenham side were unable to overcome Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Mauricio Pochettino famously compared him to both Xavi and Iniesta. High praise indeed. Compared by Pochettino to Xavi and Iniesta. That's question 1. And that's a Champions League question. And just to give you a sense of the breadth of the questions that you get in Pundit Games, listeners, is a Football League question, which I always find really tough. That was a tough one. I wouldn't have known that Champions League one, to be honest with you. This is a Football League question, chaps. This is a centre-half, Ivory Coast international. He's played for Leeds, Leicester and Cardiff, to name a few. He beat cancer. He's still playing in England with Middlesbrough. His career has taken in Scottish football, then Leicester, Trabzonspor, Palermo once, Leeds United, Cardiff City in 2016 to 21, and 21-21 Middlesbrough, 24 appearances, 46 international appearances for the Ivory Coast with 1 goal for international football. So we're going to take a short break. Be back after these advertisements.
Achtung, Millwall.
All right, so let's see if we can get how we do with the Pundit Games questions. Harry, punditgames.co.uk, dear listeners. This is the English star who played in the 2019 final for Spurs. Pochettino compared him to Xavi and Iniesta. Any ideas?
Nope.
Neil?
No, I was probably asleep at the time.
Harry Winks.
Harry
Winks compared by Pochettino
Is it Norwich
to Xavi.
now?
Don't know. There is. No, he played in the final apparently. It beat me. And second question, Football League question. The Ivory Coast International, Leeds, Leicester, and Middlesbrough currently after beating Cancer. Any ideas, boys?
Sol
Bamba.
Excellent. Well done. Do check out punditgames.co.uk for your Christmas presents. Gentlemen, thank you for indulging my need to try and press the Pundit Games button there. The Lions Food Hub do get a donation every time you select the Achtung Millwall when you buy the game, so it's well worth if you want to get a good game for Christmas. The Food Hub do benefit from that, listeners. Anyway, moving along, I was watching Casper de Noor's Millwall TV interview, chaps. He speaks really good English, Casper, doesn't he? And he's loving the new regime. He says it's a little bit more based on possession when we have the ball. And he likes it because he likes to have the football. He's a player that loves to have the ball. He likes to get a lot of touches. And this is the most un-Millwall conversation, Neil, I think I've ever had on Millwall television. A player that wants the ball, is good with the ball, and recycles it to the blue shirts, generally Millwall. He's a refreshing player, isn't he? He's a really, really strong signing, Casper de Noor.
What a player. Absolutely. What a player. Can anybody remember him having a bad game?
No.
This season? Or can anybody remember him having a bad 10 minutes this season? He has been slap bang on it from the moment he set foot into the club. And
SE16.
Well, let's be honest. Aldo, I know that H probably won't like him, but then again, H doesn't like very many people.
I don't mind Aldo. I've got nothing but respect for Aldo, to be fair.
Aldo has pulled off an absolute blinder with this one.
He does one a year, doesn't he? Fleming, de Noor. I'm waiting for the next one.
I think he's done one already because there's actually a really good, and it's a nice lead-in actually. Slightly unplanned lead-in, but anyway, there it is. I dug out the Alex Aldrich interview. It's with Richard Corley. You can find it on the South London Press website, listeners. And it's a really in-depth interview with Alex Aldrich. It's quite an interesting interview, and it goes into how they found and did the deal to get Joe Edwards through the door at the Den, and Andy Myers, because there's also another piece on Andy Myers, which is another interesting articles with lots of talk about Joe Edwards. But Andy Myers also has a fairly good track record with Chelsea, obviously, but he's also coached in Holland with Vitesse Arnhem. So, these are men that have clearly coached and worked at with some pretty high level individuals. But it's just interesting. Alex goes into how and the kinds of things they were weighing up in the process to settle eventually on Joe Edwards. Apparently, Alex Aldrich had contact with Edwards when Stoke signed a Chelsea player called Lewis Baker in January 22. That's when Alex was working for Stoke City. But he said that there was a sense from James Berylson, and the brief he was given was to find a young coach rather than one of the old sweats that have done the rounds. I think that's a really interesting approach, and it's interesting to see it come out in the interview.
Just and it's in all, there's no way that he should be with us. So Aldo pulled off an absolute blinder, as he did with the young Irish lad, Marco.
The thing is, the thing that comes across here, and you're a man with connections, Neil. But he's the Alex Aldrich contact list seems to be quite extensive. He says, in my role, it's important to have connections with the people who you can speak to at other clubs about players and clearly managers. So you start doing your homework to find Gary Rowett's successor. and there was a big volume of people who spoke very highly of Joe Edwards, Chelsea, Everton, and then the FA, obviously. A lot of people spoke highly, recommending Joe, and spoke about the levels of his coaching ability. He's an intelligent and deep-thinking coach. I think if we're going to identify, it's early days for Joe Edwards, but given these kinds of ingredients, who knows how it'll work out for him? But you can't do much better than appoint somebody that looks so clearly to have all the right ingredients to do a good job. And I think we've got to congratulate the club, James Berylson for setting the brief, but also Alex for finding the man, because you get a sense reading this that he was a big player in the deal to bring Joe Edwards in, which I think is interesting.
What tickled me actually last week was the thought of Alex, who I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
Phoning up and asking Jose Mourinho or
Thomas Tuchel. Yeah.
Because part of the process is they give references. And Joe Edwards referenced it in his welcome interview, how in depth Alex went to speak to his references. So if you've stuck Thomas Tuchel and Jose Mourinho down as your reference, hello.
They're vouching for you.
Can you imagine ringing up fucking Jose at Roma, who's having a torrid start to the season at Roma?
Brilliant.
I've got no fucking time for this. Fuck off.
Yeah, but it's just absolutely superb that you
work for who? Who you work for?
People down, and then you have to phone them up for a reference, and you could stutter through the conversation, couldn't you? Yeah, it's like whenever.
It's interesting part of the piece here, Neil. I mean, it makes a good point. Because one of the criticisms when we did our first Welcome Joe Edwards show, or reaction show, when it was first appointed, there was quite a few voicemails expressing doubts and concerns about his inexperience and all the rest of it. To some level, those doubts maybe for some will be remaining. I don't know. But just reading this article here, Rich compares the pressure that you get working for a club like Chelsea in their academy, that they're not spending money in these academies with the intention of not producing players. There is a pressure to producing the goods there. He mentions Roman Abramovich at the time being, following the academy's work closely. Money's being spent, and there is a pressure in finding and producing names and players. And he mentions quite a few players here that have come through their system. So,
did they keep any of them though, Nick, rather?
Well, that's not going to be down to Joe Edwards, is it? That's going to be
part of their brief. Yeah, but part of their brief is is under financial fair play is to produce players and then sell them.
Who knows how this is all going to work out? And it's fine to say Chelsea this and Chelsea that. I just like the idea that we have an aspiration to improve the youngsters coming through our system and to create what's the cliche, the pathway. The pathway is the cliche, isn't it? Into the first team, because that's not been something that's happening as often as I would have liked, and many other Millwall fans, because that's who we are. We produce good young players, and then we want to see them in the first team, and we have to accept we're probably going to sell them at some point, but hopefully for a decent profit. But it's an interesting piece, well worth a read. Any listeners out there that haven't seen it, it's on the London News Online website, and I do have a read of it. It's well worth it. I had to laugh the other day, Harry. You're the closest thing I've got to the youth. Who's Harry? Who's sitting there looking at me? And I had to laugh the other day because Roman Essay deleted a tweet. He's got a deal with Skechers trainers, and I replied back because I've also got a pair of Skechers, and I thought suddenly, if Roman Essay is wearing Skechers, that makes me hip, and I'm going to be hanging with the kids of Newham doing their R&B kind of breakdancing or whatever they get up to in the kids these days.
I think it's more like they running around stabbing people. If I'm being honest, that seems to be more of a thing that the kids do.
There's a lot of that going on. But I got a pair of Skechers too. Matt Richards replied back to me that that's like having Damar underwear. So maybe it's not as hip as I wanted to think it was.
It's all started with Harry. I think Harry Kane started it. Harry Kane has Skechers football boots. They're in black and they've got like a gold foot plate on the bottom. It's all to do with boot deals. So they've got Harry Kane's got obviously Romain Essa's now got them. But I don't.
The club must have made him delete the twigs. It was only up briefly, and then it's
I
now
wonder if there's a thing about not advertising your own boot deal, because every other player would have had a boot deal.
Yeah, and he's also young. He may not have been aware of that.
That
clause or whatever. I don't know if it's a
I
contract.
wonder who's his agent, Neil. Do you know who his agent is?
No, I don't. I'm thinking, yeah, but he might be with New Era, the Rio Ferdinand people. I don't know, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Anyway,
famous for Connor. What's his name? What was his name? Another Millwall fucking youngster. What was his name?
Yeah, well, Connor Wilson, who'd love to actually improve himself.
I'm going to put a tweet out saying that I wear the same. Romain Esse wears the same trainers as me. That's going to be my next big tweet.
Ladies and gentlemen,
campaign.
all football. Just my public service announcement to say how much damn with the kids I am. Football boots should be black. That's just how they are. They should be no other colours unless you are fucking the old fat Ronaldo or something like that. I might let you off, but if you're a centre back, you wear black boots. I don't understand. I just don't understand. Now, maybe this is old man,
welcome to the rest of your life.
Point H, he's actually with the Unique Sports Group.
Oh, who runs that?
Wasn't it the guy that whose dad was on the bill? Salthouse. Was it Will Salthouse's group?
Don't know, mate.
Don't know.
I was expecting him to be. I thought he'd be with someone. To be honest, when you said like Rio Ferdinand's group, I thought that probably fits in more to what I expected. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, Unique are big, really big.
Right.
There's a name I've seen around. I mean, I don't know one agency from another, but I've seen their name knocking around. So anyway, good luck to Romain Esse. It's nice to have the same trainers as one of the leading England rising internationals.
Like a few more if he's.
I like to think Harry saw me up in the West Upper wearing my Skechers trainers. Thought I've got to get on that. That's what I've got to get onto as well.
I'd like to think the reason he's gone to black boots is that he saw me at the under-40s game last season playing up front. I thought, what a guy! My 16.5 stone running around like a fucking headless chicken.
Yeah,
to be honest, I felt like Kevin Braniff in his prime. That's how much I felt like.
Yeah, we probably looked at you, H, and thought, I've got to bloody keep fit this summer.
Yeah, I was doing a term for the club.
Yeah, you were doing a term, and it was a 3-point turn. Yeah,
it fucking was, mate.
Dear listeners, Christmas is coming. You're going to be looking soon for Christmas presents, and I'm looking at 4 books here by a great author called Neil Fissler, called A Season to Remember. And in fact, I saw you got celebrity endorsement the other day, Neil, for this new series of recollections of the match reports from the some great seasons from the past.
Celebrity endorsement.
You have a go, Harry. Go on. Which celebrity?
Is it Ian Holloway?
No. Celebrity endorsement from Mr. D.
Steve
Baker,
Lomas.
Steve Lomas. Some great books here, listeners. We're going to do a show in its own right. This today's show has overtaken what I had in mind, really. But if you're looking for a Christmas present for the Millwall fan in your life, you can do a lot worse than get hold of Neil's books, which are covering the 64-65 season, 65-66, the promotion season classic from Division 2, Division 1, 1987 to 88, and just prior to that, a season that I remember very well, 75-76 season. Neil, these are great books, mate. I've got all 4 of them here. I understand you're doing a 5th one. Is that correct? Did you say you're doing a fifth option at the moment?
The 5th one will be live tonight. It covers the 1989-1990 season. So obviously,
the First Division season. Yeah,
our first Division season.
These are great little books. I just want to say well done.
The celebrity endorsement for those people who did miss was actually from Danny Baker, who bought the 2 books from the mid-60s and was kind enough to tweet me how much he actually enjoyed them and how much he enjoyed the little news section that I've included in them.
Then diary was little tidbits of information. There's match reports from each of the games of those seasons. I'm just looking at 87, 88, just snatched it off my bookshelf. Millwall 4, Huddersfield 1. This was a game played on the 19th of March, 1988, just in front of just 6,000 at the Den listeners at Goldblow Lane. And we were on a run at the time, going towards promotion, little match report teams. And then you get a little kind of tidbit of information to go with that. Den diary. John Docherty admits he still isn't a fan of the playoffs, even if it gives Millwall a chance for promotion. He says, I've never liked the idea. I'm hoping we can avoid them and go up first time. Well, didn't he do that, Neil? Brian Horn is in the England under-20 training squad before the summer trip to Brazil. And then you got other news from the second division. That's a wonderful book, especially the ones that you remember. I mean, I remember 87, 88, obviously, and the 75, 76 season. I think they just are wonderful reminders of wonderful times gone by. I was too young for 64, 65 and 65, 66, but they were promotions from Division 4 and Division 3 successively under Billy Gray. Neil, am I correct?
Yeah.
I'm too old. I'm too old for all four, Nick. And
Yeah,
Neil. If you want to feel happy,
you're not too old. You're too young.
Too young. Yes.
Too young. But these seasons, I mean, you know, I'm not going to prejudge what Neil will do because I know he's a very shrewd man. But I'm guessing you're thinking already ahead as to what other seasons you might cover in a similar fashion, Neil. But yeah, I mean, when they, yeah,
what happened in 1990, 1991? I know we got relegated, but what the fuck happened? Because we got relegated like really fucking badly, didn't we?
Well,
91. Did we?
Yeah, but it kind of started at the end of the first season where we didn't win for 10 games. And the writing was really on the wall. The squad wasn't strong enough, was it, really? And once we had injuries, we didn't have players below that, did we? We had to rely on the likes of Sean Sparr and Darren Treacy. With Dave Thompson, only a youngster, wasn't he?
I think the football back then, obviously we're talking about late 80s, not football, and Millwall had based their game with good players, but there was, I mean, the Republic of Ireland based their game on a similar kind of idea that, you got the ball forwards to the likes of Cascarino and Sheringham. You had the likes of Jimmy Carter on the wing and Kevin O'Callaghan and so on, Paul Stevenson. And the ball was pinging around the opposition penalty area and it was direct stuff. The problem with that, as we've seen how many times in our Millwall lives, generally, listeners, is that you can play that it's like a cup tie approach, and it's great when the adrenaline is high. Coldblow Lane, as it was then, was in full fury, but you can't sustain it across the whole league season. I'd rather think that's what we found in 87, 88 now, because once we got past the Christmas point in that first season, it just became harder and harder as teams started to work out ways to beat that system. And there were some good teams around at that point. I remember well the most cataclysmic match I've ever been in, really, in some ways, in the Millwall situation was when we played Liverpool at the Den, and this would be late in the 87, 88. See, I think it was around about March, if memory serves, and it was packed. There was officially 23,000 in Coldblow Lane, which was very packed. I think there were more in there because I got there late, and I think I've said before, and apologies if I repeat myself, but it was the only time where I couldn't actually got right at the back of the Coldblow and couldn't see the game, and we scored. I don't know how it was. Danny Salmon scored for us down at the other end at the Alderson Road end, and I got caught in a crowd surge, like you used to see on the old the Anfields, and where the crowd would surge like a sea. And I got carried forwards. I had no power over you just went with it. My feet were actually off the ground, and I was carried forward. I found myself in a little spot where you actually had a view of the game, and it was quite fortunate. I managed to see the rest of the game. But we were playing, I would argue, the best team in Europe at that point. They were under a ban from the Heysel Stadium issues, but we were playing, Barnes and what's his name, the Irish player Aldrich was playing for them. It was a fantastic Liverpool side, probably one of the best ever, and we matched them. We were going toe to toe. We actually took the lead, but then their football did in the end overturn us, and we lost it 2-1. But for me, it's one of the biggest moments because we actually were in the game. We took the lead. We were matching them pound for pound until quality told. And I think that, if you want it in a nutshell, is what we found over and over again in our Millwall lives. I'm hoping that's what we can start to deal with now with Joe Edwards, because in the end, quality tells, and quality told in 87, 88, and it would certainly tell the season after in 88, 89 when we got relegated.
Just to pick up one thing, Nick.
Yeah.
The Liverpool game was actually in 88, 89. And
Right.
the 87, 88 was the promotion winning season.
Of course. Yeah. No, of course, you're right. Yeah,
yeah, well, we played Liverpool.
This was a second division season.
We actually played Liverpool right at the end of that 88, 89 season. Well, it was actually a game that was postponed to allow Liverpool to play Celtic in a Super League game or Super Cup match in Dubai. So it's put back till the end of the season. Liverpool were on a huge run. They're on a very, very long run at the time. You will know that because I only wrote the match report in the last couple of days. Yeah. And we got caught out. We actually got caught out by a very, very poor refereeing decision by Alan Gunn, a Sussex referee, for Liverpool's second goal. He overruled a linesman's flag. And they scored and won 2-1. So we were kind of there about.
Yeah.
Well, we were.
We were in it. We were title contenders, Neil. League
That's
championship.
what I was going to say. Yeah, well, we were spoken about as title contenders right up until March, the middle of March. And
I think we beat Aston Villa 2-0. I remember we went to Arsenal, drew 0-0 when Les Bridie scored a famous long-range shot that was given offside, I think. But we
that's
were
the goal that
contenders.
basically could have robbed them of the title that my dad talks about even now. It's like it's one of my dad's like visceral memories of fucking Millwall support.
Your old man will take that to his final days, Harry. That's the kind of thing that will hurt forever, you know.
Because it was, but yeah, I mean, robbed up library kind of thing.
We were contenders. The only thing I would say, with the benefit of hindsight, and you know, listeners, tell me if you see it differently, is that we had a fantastic first choice 11, but we didn't have the depth. And Neil's mentioned some of the players that we had to fall back on. Whereas other sides, well, it was Liverpool we've mentioned already, but yeah, that was the season I think that Arsenal won the title with the last kick of the game, the famous Michael Thomas, you know, live on TV. So, I mean, it was 88, 89.
My question kind of goes to like, why the next season did we go from? I know we only had 11. Why did we do Millwall, shall we say, and not build on what was a great first season in the top flight, and why did it go so badly wrong? Because I've never. Everyone talks about, you know, as someone that didn't live it, everyone talks about that season, but no one really ever kind of. No one wants to talk about that season. It's almost like it's been erased. It's just like, we were in there for one season. Everyone sort of doesn't talk about the relegation season. Obviously, I understand why, but
what you're really talking about is, in my opinion, listeners, is 1 year. That's 1988, because you've got the back end of the 87, 88 that the book Neil's done covers. So we really only turned it on that season from the Christmas of 87 onwards. So you could say January 88 was an adrenaline rush towards promotion in April, May at the end of the season. Then the incredible elation of being in the first division across the summertime. We had signings coming in. I remember Ian Dawes signing for us, and I think George Lawrence signed for us was he the previous season? I can't remember how it went there, but we had the adrenaline rush of getting into the first division. So the opening games of 1988 from August through to September, I remember well, beating Everton 2-1 at home. The first game in the top flight against Derby, beating them 1-0. And it was like 1988 was one huge cup run, Millwall Cup run. You imagine every game you're going to, you have the adrenaline high of a big cup run with the prize just within grasp all the way, and then into the first division, and suddenly, incredibly, rather than being bottom of the table and losing like by 3-4 goal margins, as all of us probably privately expected to happen, lo and behold, the cup runs idea continued, and we had some incredible games. I mean, the atmosphere against I've probably mentioned this before, forgive the ramblings of an old man, but the atmosphere against Everton, Nottingham Forest, I've mentioned a few times, was incredible. You know, you left the Den with your ears ringing like you'd been at the front row in a Led Zeppelin concert or something, you know, where your ears were slightly blasted by the noise of the halfway line. The problem with a cup run, Harry, to answer your question, is it runs out, and you can't live forever like that. If only you could. And I think if you look back now, all these years later, we had a good 1988. Actually, the 89, it all started to fall away. We never really invested. When we did invest,
money.
When we did invest, Neil, we invested badly. We invested in Goddard, didn't we?
Invested in a new stadium, didn't we? That was what the Den was announced then, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
that came to pass afterwards. That came to pass later with the.
One or two questionable decisions at the end of the 88-89 season. Teddy Sheringham got sent off in the game.
Yeah.
And he dropped him for a couple of games, and despite John Doherty dropped him for a couple of games, and despite us struggling because Sheringham was facing a 3-match ban, he decided he was going to stick with Dean Horrocks, who was because obviously Horrocks he said we're going to play the 3 games that Sheringham was going to be out for. So he stuck with him for a couple of games before that, and Horrocks was struggling, and just fine margins like that. And the goals dried up from Cascarino.
Yeah. And, he moved on, didn't he? Cascarino moved on late in the 89-90 season. I think he was sold to, was it Villa he went to? Cass after he left us. I think he went in the 80.
He left us, didn't he? He left us.
Yeah, 88
deadline.
To Teddy Sheringham's eternal credit, and I would never. People called him Judas and all this kind of stuff for stupid reasons, in my opinion. But he actually stayed around because you asked.
He went to West Ham in 2004.
Yeah, but what he also did, Harry, was he stuck with us in Division 2. He got relegated back to Division 2 with us, and stuck around for that. You asked at the start of the conversation about 1990-91 when we came very, very close to certainly playoff. We got beat in the playoffs, didn't we? We should have probably have made it into the top 2 that season. But his goals, I think he scored, was it 38 goals that season? I can't remember how many he got now.
He got about 33 in the league, didn't he? Or something?
Yeah, plus other comps.
Yeah.
So he stuck around, and he stayed with us. Players wouldn't do that now. So, any listeners that want to call him Judas, well, Judas didn't stick around and help to try and get his team back into the first division. So, take that with a pinch of salt. Anyway, four great books here, Neil. They're all for sale at victorpublishing.co.uk. I'll stick a link with this show. We've put links out already on the Twitter feed. I just recommend anyone to buy them. Each one of them individually you'll learn stuff that either you remember or you didn't know. I remember 75-76 and 87-88, 2 fantastic seasons. 75-76 is my formative season. First time I ever tasted success at the Den. We got promoted from the 3rd division to the 2nd division, and there's Trevor Lee on the front cover, one of my favourite ever players. So, for anyone in your life who knows these seasons or is a Mill fan, then these are great buys. A Season to Remember by Neil Fissler. victorpublishing.co.uk.
Achtung, Millwall.
I also want to mention the Achtung Millwall calendar, which is in print at the moment, dear listeners, which will benefit the Lions Food Hub. I've gone a theme of players of the season since my choice of players of the season since
your choice. Okay,
my choice.
Your choice.
Well, I didn't choose Jordan Archer, Harry, who was player of the season in 2016-17. One of the seasons.
League One season.
He's actually of 30 seasons, he's picked out 12 players of the season.
12, yeah. So Sean Hudson.
own players of the season, H. I could see, I could see your mind working there.
Okay, that's good. That's
You
good.
won't. No, it's a selection. So it's one player. My choice. I mean, it's not. You do anything in this life, you do your own choices in the end. So my choice from those players. I didn't choose Jordan Archer, which obviously his career foundered somewhat. I did choose Tony Warner. Tony Warner's in there.
Like Denzel.
Denzel, yeah, and Sean Hutchinson and Neil Harris. Anyone ever heard of Neil Harris? Got him in there. Darren Ward, twice player of the season. Darren Ward, I hadn't realised.
Yeah, but he won it back to back. He won it back to back in the year that we got to the FA Cup final.
He did. Who's the other?
I had my hair like Darren Ward. This is how bad it was. I had my hair in my.
We need to see photos of that, Harry. So Darren Ward twice player of the season. Which other player twice player of the season, Harry, in those 30 years? Another player won it twice.
Easy. Jimmy Abdou.
Was it Jimmy Abdou?
Jimmy Abdou.
If that doesn't fucking explain the club in one decision, I don't know what will.
Explain your lack of knowledge, LH, to be honest. Everybody should know Jimmy Abdou. Come on.
Jimmy Abdou.
What I've started to realise is I'm moving towards my mid-30s, and I think
like Millwall.
I remember the bits of Millwall that I want to remember, and I'm starting to discard bits of shit that I don't need to remember. Like, I, for some unknown reason, still remember a midfield of David Brammer, right? And
Dave Brammer was Stoke player, wasn't he? He came to us. So
I'll remember, and shit forwards. If we want to do a show on absolutely terrible Millwall forwards, I remember all of our terrible fucking forwards. But you asked me a particular good Millwall player, I seem to disregard that knowledge because it's easier to remember the shit rather than it is to remember the good.
Another 2 times player of the season. We've got Jimmy Abdou. We've got Darren Ward. One other.
Is it Jed?
No.
Ooh. Don't know. Millwall always go for someone fucking hardworking.
Bart Bielkowski.
Oh, yeah, Bart won it, didn't he? The
2019-20.
That COVID season. Yeah.
So your players of the season, my choice of players of the season, and I'll hear no dissent on this.
Show that I don't vote in the player of the season more than anything, because I never fucking vote in it. I never do.
You can never vote in it because they make it so difficult to vote in it.
Oh, this is the slag off the MFC section of the podcast, Michael Avery. Hello.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's just that instead of pitching up and putting an X in a box, and putting that bit of paper in a box, they want your membership number and this, that, and the other. And
it ain't difficult, Fissler. It ain't difficult. It's that Sean Hutchinson, Jimmy Abdou, Bart Bielkowski, Alan Dunn, player of the season, 29-10. David Ford, Lee Gregory, player of the season, 2018-19. Mr. Neil Harris, player of the season, 1998-99. Matt Lawrence, 2000-2001. Steve Morrison, 2016-17. Paul Robinson, 2007-8. Danny Shitu, 2012-13. And Darren Walden mentioned, and Tony Warner. Those are my selection. And I've got photos courtesy of Brian Tonks. Big thank you, Brian Tonks. Sent for nice, really nice photos.
What kit is Tony Warner in?
Warner, was in his goalkeeper's kit. He's in
of course, but what colour?
Is yellow Ryman with black shorts, and the strange Millwall badge that's got a blue, like a dark blue background, rather than the 2 patter cake lions, as I call them.
You know what? Yeah. Well, you read through that list then, Nick, and Shitu was Player of the Year 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that's what we do. We got CFA Cup semi-final 10 years ago.
Well, this is the reason I included him, because it's kind of forgotten that run. I mean,
because we didn't play anyone decent. That's why.
And it didn't end well, but it was the FA Cup semi-final, whether you like it or not. And I thought, well, actually, I didn't include others because you have to make a selection, and I felt kind of bad on Jordan Archer. He finished up. you know, as a laughing stock when he was player of the season, and rightly so, because that's a vote of a number of people. However many voted for it, I don't know, but he was a good goalkeeper at League One level, and it didn't go right for him.
Voted player of the years, but
Yeah,
you're probably the only one that's ever been booed when going up to collect his award.
I don't know. At the end of last season, when they handed them out, if there was fucking one man and his dog left, otherwise they would have been booed.
There's a question. There's a question for you, Harry. Before we finish up, Neil Harris, how many Millwall appearances and how many goals? I'll give you 10. I'll give you 10 either way.
Is it 100 and? Is it 120 Millwall goals?
138 club record goals.
That weren't bad.
How many starts and how many substitute appearances for Neil Harris?
God almighty.
3. Right, so we're talking. So you've got to remember Neil had cancer, so you've got to lose seasons of that. I reckon about 250 appearances all win.
More than that, mate.
More?
323 starts, 108 as a sub, 138 goals, which is a club record. He had a career from 1998 2004, then came back 2007 to 2011. Player of the season in 1998-99. And incidentally, listeners, he was manager from 2015 to 19 and got us promoted in 2016 to 17, and is the only player that I've termed a club legend on this calendar, because I remain convinced that he is a club legend in the true sense of the word, with some of the other Mill greats. There we are. I think we've probably reached the end of the show, chaps.
Missed out of Golden Boot winner.
Golden Boot winner. Who
won the Golden Boot, didn't he? The season we went up.
Who, Neil?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, but that's the reason why I took the penalty, wasn't it? In the last,
took a hat trick off Moody.
Of course, yeah. Well, no, you're right. Then hands up. I've got quite a bit of info, and I was trying to keep it to a brief kind of factual thing on there rather than go over the top. But no, that's a fair point. Fair point. I'm going to close us there, listeners. Oh, by the way, do send me your voicemails. It's always good to get voicemails. But
After the one I listened to the other day, fuck me.
They're good. I like them, and it makes for a really different kind of show. And I really welcome after, especially post game, but any other time if you like, really send them over. We'll throw them in, and it's good stuff. Voicemail me. You can get 2 ways to voicemail me. One is on Twitter. If you go to direct messages, and my messages are open to all sorts of sex bots and God knows what else, so you can send me a voicemail.
Welcome to the new X.
Ladies from the Far East expressing an interest in Millwall and especially
Nick? Is it your
Philippines,
is it your regular trips to Thailand?
1975, 76. There's a little voicemail. If you send a direct message, there's a voicemail option. I think you get about 2 minutes and it cuts out, but you can send another one and I will edit it, listeners. I pride myself on my editing skills. Or you can, if you're privy to my my mobile number, you can voice WhatsApp me on that as well. So there we are. Oh, one last thing just to close this. This is the cruelty of football. We mentioned all the highs today, but what about Ryan Sanford, who was for many years our deputy goalkeeper? He's always named in and around the squad at Millwall. Following his release, he's been released by AFC Wimbledon, and he's finished up at Dartford. And that's the ladder of football, Harry. It's a long way up and a hot tumble down, isn't it, when it comes?
Yeah, I think he's just a young goalkeeper who needs to play. I think playing is an underrated skill for football players these days. They don't play.
He was highly rated. He was highly rated, wasn't he? I thought.
I don't think he's too old. Goalkeepers have got a bit of a different career, haven't they, than any other position. So hopefully he can rebuild his career.
I hope so.
And go forward. I have more hope for Brian than I do for Jordan, shall we say? But there we go. Nice.
And he's at Dartford. It's a nice setup at Dartford. Actually, I went and played golf there. They got a golf course next to it the other day. I played golf there.
Yeah, it's a nice setup. They've got a couple of 3G pitches at the front, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. It's a training ground and the stadium itself. Neil, I want to say thank you for joining us today. Big thank you, Neil Fissler. And big
No
thank you
problem.
to Harry Warren.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure as always.
Thank you to you too, dear listeners. Until the next edition from International Break, Achtung, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.